finishes as well. And so the White is such an underrated player. To be fair, I think I enjoyed the White Howard's career. I always look for the White, even later in his career, even when he was at Charlotte. I think people forget that he had a 30 and 30 game. You know how many people have done 30 and 30? I think Kevin Love is the only other person that's done 30 and 30 in the last 10 years or so. Maybe Jokic did 30 and 30. I'm not sure, or 20 and 30.
If I'm not mistaken. So 30 rebounds. Dennis Rodman got 30 rebounds in the game. Kevin Love got 30 rebounds in the game. A 30-30 game. Kevin Love did it. Before Kevin Love did it, if I'm not mistaken, I think Chamberlain was the last one to do it.
We see? This is what I'm saying to you.
I think Chamberlain was the last one to do that.
And
either Chamberlain or Russell. Like Moses Malone, I don't think Moses Malone has a 30-30 game. No, he doesn't.
I don't think so either. And I think
Jabbar doesn't either.
Definitely not. No, Kareem definitely doesn't have a 30-30 game.
No, he does not. So,
but last point I want to make about the White before I head out. People also forget the Dwight Howard wasn't that tall. Dwight Howard was only 6'10". He was only 6'10", and he's the same height as Anthony Davis. And sometimes when I saw him next to LeBron James, he looked about the same height as LeBron. And for a guy that small to be, I think people forget that he wasn't Shaq's size. He was not Shaq's size. Shaq was 7'1", and he didn't have the feet work. He didn't have the technical ability, and I think he maximized as much as his physical gifts could give him for his career. So I'm happy for Dwight. I didn't come at Anthony. I did quite like coming on.
Absolutely.
Hey, Rachel, take it easy.
Good to talk to you, brother. Absolutely. I mean, guys, like I said, guys like Dwight Howard, I mean, I think they're no-brainers, to be honest with you. The issue that I have, and I still stand on this, the issue that I have is I hear a lot of times about the top 75 lists, and, you know, this guy did it without a top 75 player, when a lot of you guys invalidate the top 75 list. Like, you don't talk about George Mikan winning the NBA championship without a top 75 player. Meanwhile, you'll say that Dwight Howard isn't on the top 75 list, and you'll invalidate it, right? You'll invalidate the you'll invalidate a guy like that. So I'm trying to make sense of how that works. But again, the fact that Dwight Howard, right? The fact that Dwight Howard did what he did in the fashion that he did it, I really, you know, I really have nothing more than I really have nothing but respect for what Dwight Howard did. Nothing at all but respect for Dwight Howard. When I think about who he was as a player, because he was nothing, like I said, he was nothing short of fantastic. No doubt about that. He was nothing short of fantastic, and he deserves all the flowers that he gets. 100% he does, because same thing with Carmelo Anthony. He deserves all the flowers, all the flowers that he gets. So yes, he was nothing short of fantastic. What up?
Yo, what up, Chill?
What up, brother?
Chill, man. I just wanted to say salute, love the content. You know, but I wanted to ask you, first off, I'm happy for Melo. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to everybody that got to the Hall of Fame, but I'm very happy for Melo. He became my favorite player because of the mid-range shot. And like you said, I would just be reiterating that. But what I wanted to ask you is, from when Melo era played till now, how important is the mid-range going into this generation and going forward, in your opinion?
Well, I can tell you it's always been one of the most important shots, but because analytics have now become what it's become, advanced analytics have now made the mid-range shot the most ineffective shot in the game, because you're shooting the furthest away from the basket. Yeah, you're shooting the furthest away from the basket. In addition to you shooting the furthest away from the basket, it's only worth 2 points, but completely leaving out what it opens up. I've always thought that I've always felt like the mid-range is one of the most important shots, because it gives you so much more space. When you're able to knock down the mid-range and when you're able to knock down the mid-range and do it consistently, defenses have to honor that. And when defenses honor that, that gives more space. Whether you're in the paint, whether you're in the mid-post, defenses have to honor that. But if you're not shooting it at all, and you're shooting, if you're not shooting it at all, and you're shooting behind the 3-point line and 3-point line only, then I don't think that you're giving yourself nearly as much. I don't think you're giving yourself nearly as much space. When you start in the mid range and then you move to the long ball line, I think that you can be so much more of an effective player if you did that. I don't buy that advanced analytics logic that the mid range is the most ineffective shot, because if that was the case, then taking the mid range out of the game and only playing at the long ball line and at the rim, we saw what that did with the Boston Celtics.
Yeah,
we saw what happened when you rely on that as much as you do. So when you take that mid range out, what you're taking out is an aspect of your game that can completely make you even more effective than what you already are. So it 100% is important.
I want to add to what you said before I got on. You know, I'm listening as well. Drop coverage. I feel like mid range destroy drop coverage. You could not play drop coverage on a mid range shooter.
Because guys
too
are so
dangerous.
Mid range, yeah, guys were so effective in the mid range. You can't do it.
Word, but that's all I got, Chill. I just wanted to say that.
Good to talk to you, brother. You know where to find me at. What up? Yo.
Hello, Chill.
What up?
Yeah. I just what Amari said, that Dwight was better than Melo. I feel like that is a very, very good conversation that many people don't want to hear, but it's almost like, if you think about it for more than 3 seconds, is legitimately true.
Well, think about who affected the game more. Like just from that aspect alone. Like let's take Carmelo Anthony and Carmelo Anthony and Dwight Howard off the table as players, like just skill for skill, because that's what people want to talk about. Let's just talk about them and how these two guys affected the game. Who affected the game more, Dwight Howard or Carmelo Anthony?
I think this is a unanimous Dwight Howard. The gap offensively isn't as big as many people would like to think, but the gap defensively, that is as big as the Red Sea. I genuinely believe that I think Dwight Howard was not used to the best of his abilities in his prime. The way he was athletic, how athletic it was, I don't think he was used like to the best of his abilities. We could have seen a better defender in him, especially since, how do I say this? The same way with Rudy in Utah and Rudy in Minnesota, I would almost unanimously say everyone would say Rudy in Minnesota is better defensively than the Rudy in Utah. When you have a good defensive unit around you, you can do wonders. Kevin Garnett, 2008, that is like almost a prime example of. So he was out of his prime, but that's one of the greatest defensive units of all time.
He was still in his prime. I think he was still in his prime. I think he was out of his peak. I don't think that was
out of his peak.
I don't think that was peak KG. But with to your point, when you have a player to the magnitude of Dwight Howard that affects the game the way he does, now we can match the skill set. Right now, we can put the skill set on the table. Well, how is Dwight Howard affecting the game more than Carmelo Anthony? What is Carmelo Anthony doing as a bucket getter that's more impactful than what Dwight Howard is doing overall? Not just as a bucket getter, but also as a defender. What is he doing? How is he manning the paint? How is he stopping plays? How is he rim protecting or deterring shots? How is he doing that? Well, you see what he does in quote unquote drop coverage. You see how he's hedging on guards and getting back to the big guy at the same time. You see how good he is as a recovery defender. You see how guards, even on fast breaks, they don't want to go down the lane when Dwight Howard's running, because Dwight Howard's going to smack that thing into the 10th row, or he's going to pin it up against the glass. That affects your game. Now, Carmelo Anthony, on the flip side to that, when we're talking about a bucket getter, and we're talking about a guy who just can get me buckets, because that's what I classify Carmelo Anthony as. He wasn't a distributor. He wasn't much of a defender. He could rebound the basketball and stop plays, which I'd like to think that matters. But more often than not, he was getting you buckets. That's who he was. He's the guy that we go into for buckets. And was that more prevalent and was that more significant for what Dwight Howard did overall? I don't think so.
Yeah, I very much agree with you. And it's kind of, I don't want to say this because he just got inducted to the Hall of Fame, but someone like Carmelo Anthony for me is how do I say this? Is an overstated bucket getter. Um,
You're not the first
what
person to say that to me. I've heard that a number of different times, and I'm trying to make sense of it. Because is it because it was less difficult to guard him than KD? It was less difficult to guard him than James Harden, for instance. Is that what it is? What is it when I keep hearing this about Carmelo Anthony being a bucket getter? I mean, overstating him being a bucket getter.
What I mean by that, and by the way, they're not similar in players. Like, these are not similar at all. But it's maybe a Cam Reddish that is given a team. Like, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Just a guy who wants to go at it all the time, 1v1, come at me, I'll come at you, try to defend you at least. Although he wasn't a good defender. But that's what he looks like to me. A Cam Reddish that was given reins. Like, here you go. A Cam Reddish without the LeBron James in his team, or Anthony Davis. That's what Carmelo Anthony sees. That's what I see in Carmelo Anthony, which again is kind of disrespectful, but that's the type of player he was at the end of the day. And I think that is the last type of his archetype will die. I think he's the last type of player like that.
When you say before you go, when you say Cam Reddish, I mean, do you think Cam Reddish was on the level of Carmelo Anthony as a bucket getter?
No, that's why I said it's kind of it's very disrespectful to say it, like, but that's the type of player he is. The type. I promise you, if
you talking about you talking about the 6'8" wing that could score, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but can't really do anything else to that level. 6'8" Cam Thomas. I don't know. That's literally what he was for me. That he's just here. Go. We can let you go. But the reason why teams with players like Melo will never succeed, and actually, I'll deter for a little bit. Well, it's interesting to me. The reason why we found bucket getters like Melo, like AI, is because of Jordan, actually. So the NBA is a copycat league. They saw that if you had a good big man, you would win. Now, Jordan broke that rule whereby he was the best player on his team, and it was a very defensive-minded team. So from then on, most of the 2000s, what you saw, except for Shaq and Kobe, was one good, very, very good offensive player, T-Mac, Vince Carter, AI, so forth, and a very, very defensive-minded team. And that was the archetype, and that, especially in those early 2000s, that was what was going on. That's why Shaq and Kobe, for me, they almost had to win those championships, and the only competition for them would be the Detroit Pistons, because the Detroit Pistons did not exactly follow that. One guard who was really, really good, followed by a defensive-minded team. Vince Carter, was surrounded by a defensive-minded kid. AI was surrounded by a defensive-minded team. So the NBA saw what Jordan did. Is like, we tried to replicate that. But then when Shaq and Kobe got together, I think that was too much for everyone else to make up for with just one offensive guy, if you get what I mean. But Carmelo Anthony was put in that type of situation. But then when they traded for AI, they said, we are going almost full in offensive with still some defensive guys in there. But for me, Carmelo Anthony is if you again, this is very disrespectful. If you put a 6'8" Cam Thomas next to Ben Wallace in them and Chauncey Billups in them, like that's what it looks like to me. But then, of course, Melo is better than all of these guys I'm comparing him to.
He is. Yes, he is.
Way better than all of these guys
he
I'm
is.
comparing to.
But
that's just what it looks like. Sorry, Joe. I had one more thing to say. That has been itching in me. I wanted to come up on Chill with Chill, but I didn't have time. When I hear that the game has become weaker, has become worse, this really bugs me. I am a younger guy, and again, correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm not old at all. But when I go and look back and look at what people are saying about Jordan in the 90s, Dennis Rodman in the 90s, people are saying Dennis Rodman was the greatest rebounder of all time. And then Bill Russell went into an interview and was like, my friend Wilt was very, very like discouraged that people are saying he's the greatest rebounder. Well, like what did he do? So I feel like every era gets shitted on by the people of previous eras. Am I wrong?
And it's only in pro basketball too, by the way. They don't do that in any other sport. They don't do that in football. They don't do that in baseball. They don't do that in any other sport except pro basketball. That's it. They don't do it anywhere else. They pay homage to guys before them. In pro basketball is the only one where they talk about guys from the past and they talk about them like they ain't shit. They do. They don't do that anywhere else.
Yeah, and in fact, it goes both ways. Guys from the past also come here and say, Will was saying at like 65 years old, I could drop 70 today. Like he was just casually saying that on live TV, man. That was very funny to me. I think it's because basketball is almost a mano sport. It's still a team sport, but it's one of the team sports where one individual can affect many things at the same time. So that competitive nature gets in the way of it. I'm a big soccer fan. That doesn't happen at all. Like, yeah, like it's almost, yeah, you just continue. But how comes this keeps on repeating, Joe? Like everyone
I just think it's in basketball more than any space, because I feel like in basketball it's become more individualized as time has gone on. Like it became more individualized in the 90s. It became more individualized in the 2000s. It became more individualized in the 2010s. Like I feel like I feel like we're getting back. That's because we have the parity in the league. I think we're getting back to more team-oriented guys. With that being said, I feel like the guys that we have in the league today and the guys that we've had in the league over the last 10 years, the last 15 years, they focus a lot on the individual as opposed to recognizing what that individual brings to the table and to the unit, because that's what this is really about. Basketball is not a one-on-one sport. That's tennis, that's bowling, that's golf, right? I do have one-on-one tendencies, and there are times when I'm needed to carry the load as a one-on-one player, but for the most part I need these guys that are around me. And in football, we recognize that the quarterback needs the offensive line. We recognize that the running back needs the offensive line, and we praise the offensive line for that, right? In hockey, we recognize that as good a goalie as you are, you need your defenseman, and we praise guys like that in terms of goalies for recognizing what they need. In pro basketball, it's the only sport where we have to just completely and utterly recognize you being a one-on-one player and you being better than everybody else as a one-on-one player. And that's just not how basketball works. That's just not. And I think that the era that we live in, I mean, that's what it is. So, all right, brother. Good to talk to you.
Have a great day, too.
Yes, sir. Absolutely, man. I'm not feeling the Cam Thomas logic, a bigger Cam Thomas, but I do understand where he's coming from when he talks about he threw a name out, and I definitely I definitely can appreciate the logic of him. Right, I can definitely appreciate the logic of him recognizing Melo as a bucket getter, because that's what I recognize him as. I recognize him as a bucket getter. But what I also recognize that it wasn't empty. Like this Sorrow Alpha dude in my chat who says Carmelo Anthony is DeMar DeRozan, both garbage and stat padders. He went to the playoffs for 10 straight years. So with you saying that he was a stat padder, you're essentially telling people that it meant nothing, when in reality, yes, it did. Yes, it did. It meant a lot. So I like to talk basketball where I am, right? I don't like to talk like the fake nonsense that you guys are talking. So I like to talk actual facts, right? So yes, DeMar DeRozan did too, 100%. So I'm not just going to disregard going to the playoffs. I'm not going to do that. You can do that because that's a narrative, and you're of that generation where if you're not winning the NBA championship, you suck. That's why I can't talk basketball with you, because you don't understand what goes into actual winning basketball games and getting to that point. You have no idea what that is. But you'll come up here but I'm done addressing you. I'm good. I got a super chat from Leaf. Leaf said, chill. They should have never gave us Micah Parsons. Uh-oh. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Micah Parsons. So that's what that is. Speaking of giving y'all something, I got to give it to Heave Ho, guys, because it's about that time for me. But it was good to see you guys tonight. You know where to find me. I'm on TikTok every morning, 9 a.m. If you can't find me there, you can find me on the panel right here on YouTube on the Players Choice Network from 11 to 2. If you can't find me there, you can find me weeknights on Chilltown Hoops. You can find me on Tuesday night. Me and my man Tony Tone, we do it on both the Chilltown Hoops Network and the Sports Fluent Network. If you can't find me here, me and my man Big Ox, we do it on Thursday at 4 o'clock, and we do it on Saturday at 12 o'clock on Chill with Chill. So I'm not hard to find, guys. I will see you guys soon. Until then, put on a suit, drink water, don't drink and drive. Hey, man, call your mother. When's the last time you talked to your mother? Call your mother. I will talk to you guys soon. But until then, take it light. Take it. Absolutely, man. It was good to see you guys tonight. I really enjoyed this. No doubt. This was dope. No doubt.